All right, let's dive right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tackling cell size, specialization, and cell types. My goal today is to take the invisible, microscopic world of cells and make it feel, well, tangible, logical. We're going to look at the invisible architecture that literally builds every single living thing around us.
So here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the rule of staying small, move on to form follows cellular function, check out the power of teamwork, scale up to the levels of biological organization, and finally, we'll pit prokaryotes against eukaryotes.
All right, Section 1, the rule of staying small. You see, biology has a pretty strict physical constraint. Life at the microscopic scale, and we're talking a scale where we measure things in mere micrometers, operates under some uncompromising physical rules. Which actually brings us to this kind of fun question. Why aren't there giant elephant-sized cells? Seriously, imagine a single cell the size of a whole animal just wobbling around out there. Now, aside from an unfertilized ostrich egg, which, fun fact, is technically a single massive yolk-filled cell, the reality is that most cells being microscopic isn't just some random evolutionary accident. It is a matter of strict survival and sheer biological efficiency.
To really understand why cells absolutely must stay tiny, we've got to wrap our heads around their surface area to volume ratio. Basically, this is just a straightforward comparison of a cell's outer boundary area, that's the surface area, to its internal space, the volume. So why does this matter so much? Well, because every single living cell needs to constantly exchange materials with its environment just to survive. It absolutely has to pull in nutrients and push out toxic waste, no exceptions. Let's compare these two factors directly. Think of the surface area as the supply. It's the literal boundary where all that crucial exchange happens. Volume, on the other hand, well, that's the demand. It's the internal space that's constantly eating up those resources. Think of it like a growing city. The internal volume is your booming population. They're demanding food, they're producing trash. The surface area, that's the highway system surrounding the city, responsible for importing the food and exporting the trash. If the population, the volume, grows too fast, those highways just can't supply the city fast enough. And what happens? A massive, catastrophic traffic jam.
So the crucial point we need to take away here is this. As a cell grows, its volume increases way faster than its surface area. That surface area to volume ratio drops dangerously low, making it incredibly difficult for the cell to just meet its basic needs. Basically, large cells lose their internal balance, their efficiency plummets, and it's bad news. And this brilliantly illustrates why cells do what they do. They divide. By dividing, they remain small. They hit the reset button to maintain a high surface area to volume ratio, keeping the supply high and the demand entirely manageable.
Moving right along to Section 2, form follows cellular function.
Now that we know cells have to stay small to survive, you might be wondering, how do they manage to perform highly complex, highly specific tasks? Well, the answer is they get super creative with their shapes. The shape of a cell can dramatically increase its efficiency for specific jobs. This means structure and function are directly, intrinsically linked. In fact, that's a foundational rule of all biology. For instance, if you have a cell that needs to handle a lot of rapid diffusion and exchange, making it incredibly thin or flat maximizes that all-important surface area. On the flip side, if a cell needs to send a message far away, stretching it out to be super long is definitely the way to go.
Let's look at some fantastic examples of this. Take red blood cells. They're shaped like these little indented discs, almost like tiny donuts, which lets them efficiently carry oxygen through your body without getting wedged inside microscopic capillaries. Nerve cells, though, are totally different. They are long and heavily branched, kind of resembling wires. In fact, get this, a single nerve cell running down your leg can be up to a meter long, just so it can instantly transmit electrical signals from your spine all the way to your toes. Muscle cells? They're elongated, almost cable-like, to allow for physical contraction and powerful movement. And down in the dirt, root hair cells on plants have these extended, microscopic projections to maximize absorbing water and nutrients from the soil. Every structural quirk perfectly supports that cell's specific role. Form literally fits function.
All right, Section 3, the power of teamwork.
So, we've looked closely at the individual cell and its unique shape, but now let's zoom out a bit. Let's look at how these small units team up across a fascinating spectrum to create massive organisms. Over on the far left, representing total independence, we have unicellular organisms. Think bacteria and many protists. One single, microscopic cell handles every single life function entirely on its own. Moving along the spectrum to the middle, we have colonial organisms, like volvox.
This is a really cool transitional phase where groups of identical cells live together. They could survive independently, but they group up for mutual benefit. Finally, over on the right, we hit multicellular organisms: plants, animals, fungi. Here we see incredible complexity, with tons of specialized cells working strictly together as a singular entity.
Now, what's really interesting here is the massive trade-off that comes with multicellular life. When you look at the advantages of specialization, you get incredibly high efficiency and the ability to pull off stunningly complex functions. But there is a serious catch. These specialized cells completely lose their independence. A single human muscle cell or a plant root hair cell, no way it can survive on its own in the wild. Incredible teamwork requires sacrificing independence, creating strict biological interdependence.
Which brings us to Section 4, Levels of Biological Organization. We are now officially pulling the camera all the way out to see how these specialized, interdependent cells stack together step, progressive, step. Step 1, cells. As we know, these are your basic unit of structure. Step 2, tissues. When you group similar, specialized cells together, boom, you get a tissue. Step 3, organs. When you combine different tissues to tackle complex roles, you get an organ, like a beating heart or photosynthesizing leaf. Step 4, organ systems. Organs rarely fly solo. They team up into highly coordinated systems, like your circulatory or digestive system. And finally, Step 5, the organism. All those organ systems functioning seamlessly together give you the complete living thing. To put that massive scale into perspective, a complete human being requires around 30 trillion of those microscopic cells functioning flawlessly together. I mean, it is an absolutely stunning biological hierarchy.
And finally, Section 5, Prokaryotes versus Eukaryotes. To properly wrap up our explainer today, we need to categorize all these different types of cells into two main biological genres of life. On the left side, we have prokaryotic cells. These are the ancient survivors. They're small, simple, and crucially, they do not have a nucleus. Their genetic material just floats freely in the cytoplasm, and they completely lack membrane-bound organelles. These are your fiercely independent unicellular bacteria and archaea. On the right side, though, we have eukaryotic cells. These are larger, much more complex, and feature a distinct protective nucleus housing their DNA. They are packed full of membrane-bound organelles, with each one acting like a specialized little factory right inside the cell. These eukaryotes, they're the brilliant builders of the complex multicellular life we see in plants, animals, and fungi.
Which leads us perfectly to this final question. How will the complex organelles inside these eukaryotic cells combine to function in our next unit? We know eukaryotic cells are basically highly organized, specialized microcities. But how does that internal machinery actually operate day to day to keep a massive organism alive? Keep that provocative thought turning over in your mind. I really hope this explainer has shifted how you view the microscopic building blocks of life, and I absolutely can't wait to explore the inner workings of those eukaryotic cells with you next time.